The great hall of the Vel Collective stretched for miles beneath the surface of their home world. Thousands of leaders from across the galaxy sat in curved seats that rose like waves toward the dark ceiling. Light came from floating orbs that drifted slowly through the air. The smell of burning incense filled the space, meant to calm the minds of those who gathered. Ambassador Orin stood at the center of it all. He was tall for his kind, with pale blue skin and 4 arms that he kept folded behind his back. His large black eyes moved across the crowd. He had traveled for 6 months to reach this place. He had spent 3 years before that studying one small planet in a distant corner of the galaxy, Earth. The word alone made several council members shift in their seats. Orin noticed this. He had expected it. "Honored leaders," Orin began, his voice echoing through the hall. "I come before you today with my final report on the human species." A low murmur spread through the crowd. The Vel Collective controlled over 200 star systems. They had conquered dozens of species. They had never lost a war in 10,000 years. But lately, there had been whispers. Stories that came from the edges of known space. Stories about humans. Orin raised one of his 4 hands, and a hologram appeared in the air before him. It showed a small blue planet, covered in oceans and green land. "Earth," Orin said. "Third planet from a yellow star. Population of 8 billion sentient beings. They call themselves humans." An elder named Braun leaned forward in his seat. His skin was darker than Orin's, marked with the scars of ancient battles. "We have heard the reports, Ambassador. We know humans are violent. We know they fight among themselves constantly. Why should we care about such primitive creatures?" Orin nodded slowly. He had expected this question too. "Because, Elder Braun, their violence is not their weakness, it is their strength." The murmur grew louder. Orin waited for silence before continuing. "I spent 3 years studying their history. I watched recordings of their wars. I analyzed their weapons. I observed their soldiers." Orin paused. "What I found terrified me." The hologram changed. It now showed images of human warfare through the ages. Soldiers in ancient armor fighting with swords. Massive ships firing cannons across oceans. Metal machines rolling across muddy fields. Aircraft dropping fire from the sky. "Humans have been fighting since the moment they could walk upright," Orin explained. "They have never stopped. Not for a single generation. While other species evolved toward peace, humans evolved toward war." Elder Braun made a dismissive sound. "Many species fight. The krill nearly destroyed themselves before we conquered them. Violence means nothing." With respect, Elder, you are wrong." Orin's voice was firm. "The krill fought out of anger. They fought without thought. Humans are different. They fight with purpose. They learn from every battle. They adapt faster than any species I have ever studied." The hologram changed again. This time it showed a human soldier. The soldier wore heavy armor and carried a weapon that glowed with energy. "This recording is from the Proxima incident," Orin said. 50 years ago, a scout ship from the Tor Empire discovered Earth. The Tor thought humans would be easy to conquer. They sent 500 warriors to claim the planet. The council watched in silence. "None of them returned," Orin continued. "The Tor sent 1,000 more. Then 5,000. Then an entire fleet." The hologram showed burning ships falling from a dark sky. "The humans destroyed them all. But that is not what frightened me." Orin changed the image once more. "This is..." The new hologram showed a human weapon. It was unlike anything the Tor had seen. A long tube with complex machinery attached to its sides. The Tor used plasma weapons, standard military technology. When the war began, humans had nothing like this. Their weapons used simple projectiles, metal balls fired by explosive powder. Orin let that sink in. Within 2 years of fighting the Tor, humans had built this. A portable plasma cannon that was 3 times more powerful than anything the Tor possessed. Elder Braun was no longer dismissive. He stared at the hologram with wide eyes. They did not steal this technology, Oren said. They did not copy it from captured weapons. They studied the Tor's plasma rifles, understood the basic principles, and then built something better. Something completely new. Another council member, a female named Sarah, spoke up. How is this possible? The Tor had been developing plasma weapons for centuries. Exactly my point. Oren turned to face her. Humans do not develop weapons slowly over centuries. They do not wait for gradual improvement. When they face a threat, they throw all their resources into solving the problem. They call it war mobilization. The hologram showed factories. Massive buildings with smoke rising from their towers. Inside, thousands of humans worked day and night, building machines of war. During one of their global conflicts, they increased their weapon production by 400% in a single year. They built ships, aircraft, and tanks faster than anyone thought possible. They turned farmers into soldiers and teachers into engineers. Their entire civilization transformed into a war machine. Silence filled the great hall. Even the floating lights seemed to dim. The Tor thought they were invading a primitive planet, Oren said. They did not understand what they had awakened. Humans do not just fight wars. They become the war. Every citizen, every resource, every thought turns toward victory. Elder Braun finally spoke. What happened to the Tor? They no longer exist. Oren's voice was flat. After the initial invasion failed, the Tor sent their entire military to destroy Earth. They brought 10,000 ships and millions of soldiers. The humans met them at the edge of their solar system. The hologram showed the battle. It was chaos, fire and light and death spreading across the darkness of space. The war lasted 4 years. By the end, the humans had not only defended their home, they had followed the Tor back to their own worlds. They burned every Tor colony. They destroyed every Tor ship. They made sure the Tor could never threaten them again. They committed genocide? Sira asked, her voice filled with horror. No. Oren shook his head. They offered peace many times. The Tor refused. The humans did what they believed was necessary to protect their species. That is what makes them dangerous. They do not fight for glory or conquest. They fight for survival. And they will do anything to survive. Oren closed the hologram. He stood alone in the center of the Great Hall, surrounded by the most powerful leaders in the galaxy. My recommendation is simple, he said. Do not contact humanity. Do not threaten them. Do not give them any reason to see us as enemies. Their soldiers are terrifying, but we have faced dangerous soldiers before. He paused, and his next words hung in the air like a curse. What we have never faced is a species that can turn peaceful scientists into weapons builders overnight. What we have never faced is a species that treats war as a problem to be solved, rather than a horror to be avoided. If we become their enemy, they will not just fight us. They will study us. They will learn everything about us, and then they will build something terrible. The council sat in stunned silence. They had conquered the galaxy. They had never feared anyone. Until now. 3 years passed after Ambassador Oren gave his warning to the Vel Collective. The council followed his advice. They avoided human space. They watched from a distance. They waited. But the galaxy is vast, and sometimes fate has other plans. The warship Endless Dawn was one of the largest vessels in the Vel fleet. It stretched for 2 miles from front to back, carrying 5,000 crew members and enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Commander Kell stood on its bridge, watching the stars drift past the main viewing window. Kell was young for a commander. His blue skin was smooth, unmarked by scars or age. He had earned his position through intelligence, not battle. He had never lost a ship. He had never failed a mission. He believed he never would. "Commander," said his navigation officer, a nervous male named Pak. "We are approaching the restricted zone." Kell nodded. The restricted zone was human space. The council had drawn a line around it on every star map. No Vel ship was allowed to cross that line for any reason. How close are we? Kel asked. 3 light-years from the boundary. We will pass safely if we maintain our current course. Good. Continue on path. The Endless Dawn was returning home after a diplomatic mission to the outer colonies. They had taken the fastest route, which brought them near human territory. Kel was not worried. 3 light-years was a safe distance. Humans had no reason to even notice them. Then the lights went out. Every screen on the bridge turned black. Every console died. The hum of the engines, which had been constant for the entire journey, fell silent. The great ship began to drift. What happened? Kel demanded. His voice stayed calm, but his hearts were beating fast. Spock frantically checked his dead console. I do not know, Commander. Everything just stopped. Emergency lights flickered on, casting the bridge in dim red. Kel could hear his crew members moving in the darkness. Their voices filled with confusion and fear. Engineering, Kel shouted into his communication device. Report. Static answered him. Then, slowly, a voice came through. It belonged to Chief Engineer Ven, an older female who had served on ships for most of her life. Commander, we have a serious problem. The main power core has failed. Complete shutdown. How is that possible? Those cores are designed to run for 1,000 years without maintenance. I know, sir. Ven's voice was heavy with worry. But something went wrong. A cascade failure in the energy containment system. I have never seen anything like it. Ven's voice was heavy with worry. Kel closed his eyes. Without power, the Endless Dawn was just a giant piece of metal floating through space. They had emergency batteries, but those would only last a few days. Life support, gravity, everything depended on the main power core. Can you fix it? Kel asked. A long pause. I do not think so, Commander. The damage is too severe. We would need a proper shipyard. Specialized tools. Parts we do not have. Kel turned to look at the viewing window. Through the dim emergency lights, he could see stars in the distance. Somewhere out there, beyond those stars, was human space. Spock, Kel said slowly, where is the nearest civilization that could help us? Spock checked his console, which was now running on backup power. His face turned pale. Commander, the nearest Vel colony is 40 light-years away. We cannot reach them without the main engines. And the nearest non-Vel civilization? Spock hesitated. His hands trembled as he checked the data again. Earth, Commander. Earth is only 2 light-years from our current position. The bridge fell silent. Every crew member understood what this meant. They could die here, drifting in the darkness, or they could ask humans for help. Kel stood perfectly still. He thought about Ambassador Oren's warning. He thought about the stories he had heard. Humans who destroyed entire empires. Humans who built terrible weapons. Humans who should be avoided at all costs. But he also thought about his crew. 5,000 lives depending on him. 5,000 families waiting for them to come home. Open a channel to Earth, Kel ordered. Commander. Spock looked horrified. The Council forbids contact with humans. If we break that law, if we do not break that law, we will all die. Kel's voice left no room for argument. Open the channel. Spock nodded weakly and began working at his console. It took several minutes to configure the emergency communication system. Finally, a small green light appeared. Channel open, Commander. Kel stepped forward. He had no idea what to say. How do you ask for help from a species that your people had been taught to fear? This is Commander Kel of the Vel collective vessel Endless Dawn, he began. We have experienced a catastrophic system failure. Our power core is offline. We have limited life support and no way to move. We are requesting emergency assistance from any nearby vessels. He paused, then added, We come in peace. We mean no harm. We simply need help. The message went out into the void. Then they waited. Hours passed. The emergency batteries slowly drained. The air grew colder as life support struggled to function. Crew members gathered in groups, sharing warmth and worry. Kel remained on the bridge. He refused to leave. He stared at the communication console, waiting for a response that might never come. Then, finally, a light appeared. "Commander!" Spock shouted. "We are receiving a transmission." Kel rushed to the console. "Put it through." A voice filled the bridge. It was strange, speaking a language that the translation system struggled to process. But slowly, the words became clear. "Vel Collective Vessel. This is Captain Tejo of the Earth Defense Fleet ship, Hammer of Soul. We have received your distress call. A rescue team is being dispatched to your location. Please remain calm and do not attempt any hostile actions. Help is on the way." The crew members looked at each other. Some were relieved. Others were terrified. They were about to meet humans for the first time. Kel sat down in his command chair. His legs felt weak. "Respond to their message. Tell them we are grateful. Tell them we will cooperate fully." Spock sent the response. Then they waited again. 6 hours later, Spock detected something on the sensors. "Commander, a ship is approaching. Small vessel. It appears to be a shuttle." Kel stood and walked to the viewing window. In the distance, he could see a tiny light moving toward them. It grew larger as it approached, eventually revealing itself as a sleek white craft with strange symbols painted on its side. "They sent a shuttle?" Kel was confused. "How do they expect to repair our power core with a shuttle?" "Perhaps they are just coming to assess the damage," Spock suggested. The shuttle moved alongside the Endless Dawn and connected to one of the emergency airlocks. Kel ordered a security team to meet them, but told them to keep their weapons hidden. "We will not provoke them," Kel said firmly. "Whatever happens, we will not give them a reason to see us as threats." He made his way to the airlock, his 4 arms clasped tightly behind his back. When he arrived, the security team was already there, standing at attention. The airlock doors hissed open. Kel expected soldiers. He expected warriors with weapons and armor. He expected the terrifying humans he had heard so many stories about. Instead, he saw a small woman with black hair tied back in a simple knot. She wore plain gray clothes with no armor. She carried no weapons. Behind her stood 2 young men and another woman, all dressed the same way. The black-haired woman smiled warmly. "Hello. I am Hana. We are here to help fix your ship." Kel stared at her. This tiny, unarmed creature was supposed to save them? "Where are your soldiers?" he asked, unable to hide his confusion. Hana tilted her head. "Soldiers? Why would we bring soldiers? You need engineers, not warriors." She looked around the airlock with curious eyes. "Now can you show me to your power core? I would like to see what we are working with." Kel had no words. He simply nodded and led the way. As he walked, he could not shake the feeling that something important was about to happen. Something he did not yet understand. Commander Kel led the 4 humans through the dark corridors of the Endless Dawn. Emergency lights painted everything in shades of red. The air was cold and getting colder. Crew members pressed against the walls as they passed, staring at the humans with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Hana walked calmly beside Kel. She did not seem bothered by the cold or the darkness. Her eyes moved constantly, studying the walls, the ceiling, the technology around her. The 2 young men behind her did the same. One of them, a tall male with a friendly face, carried a small bag over his shoulder. The other was shorter and quieter, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The second woman was younger than Hana. She moved with the energy of someone who could not wait to get started on something exciting. "Your ship is beautiful," Hana said suddenly. Kel glanced at her. "What?" "The design, the curves of the corridors, the way the walls flow into each other." Hana ran her hand along the smooth surface. Whoever built this ship was an artist. Kel did not know how to respond. No one had ever called a Vel warship beautiful before. It was a weapon, designed to destroy enemies. Beauty had never been a consideration. "I am sorry," Kel said carefully. "I do not understand. You are engineers, yes? You fix machines?" Hana smiled. "We do more than fix machines. But yes, we can certainly help with your power core." She gestured to the tall man behind her. "This is Minho. He designed starship engines. Before he joined our team, He worked on the drives that power Earth's fastest vessels. Minho gave a small wave. Nice to meet you, Commander. Hana continued. The quiet one is Do-hyun. He specializes in energy systems. Power cores, reactors, anything that generates energy. He has been building them since he was a teenager. Do-hyun nodded but said nothing. His eyes were already focused on the lights flickering in the ceiling. And this is Yuna, Hana pointed to the young woman. She designs protective equipment, armor, shields, defensive systems. She is the youngest member of our team, but also one of the most creative. Yuna grinned. Your emergency lighting system is interesting. The color spectrum is different from what we use. I would like to study it later if you do not mind. Kel's confusion deepened. These were not soldiers. They were not even regular engineers. They were something else entirely. You said you designed things, Kel said slowly. What exactly do you mean? Hana considered the question as they walked. We create new technology. When Earth faces a problem, our team finds solutions. Sometimes we improve existing machines. Sometimes we invent completely new ones. You are inventors? In a way. But that word does not quite capture it. Hana paused, searching for the right explanation. On Earth, we have a saying. Necessity is the mother of invention. When we need something, we create it. When something threatens us, we build a way to stop it. That is what we do. We imagine solutions. And then, we make them real. They reached the engineering section. Chief Engineer Ven was waiting for them at the entrance to the power core chamber. She was a sturdy female with tired eyes and grease stains on her uniform. Commander, Ven said with relief. I am glad you brought help. The situation is getting worse. Kel nodded. Show them. Ven led the group into the power core chamber. It was a massive space, dominated by a cylindrical structure that rose from the floor to the ceiling. Normally, the core would glow with bright energy. Now it was dark and silent. Like a dead heart at the center of the ship. Do-hyun stepped forward immediately. He circled the core, his eyes moving up and down its surface. He stopped at a panel and pulled it open without asking permission. Ven started to protest, but Kel raised a hand to stop her. Let them work, Kel said quietly. Do-hyun studied the machinery inside the panel. His expression remained neutral, but Kel noticed his eyes widen slightly. Interesting, Do-hyun said. It was the first word he had spoken since arriving. What is interesting? Kel asked. Do-hyun pointed at something inside the panel. Your containment field generators. They use a crystalline matrix to stabilize the energy flow. Very elegant design. But the crystals have fractured. Ven nodded sadly. Yes. The crystals cannot be repaired. They must be replaced. And we do not have spares. Do-hyun closed the panel and turned to Minho. They exchanged a look that seemed to communicate entire conversations without words. What? Kel demanded. What is wrong? Minho pulled a small device from his bag. It looked like a flat screen with various tools attached. Nothing is wrong, Commander. We are just thinking. About what? About how to fix your core without replacement crystals. Minho tapped his screen several times. The crystal matrix is only one way to stabilize energy flow. It is the way your people chose, but there are other methods. Kel felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. What other methods? Hana stepped up beside him. Her voice was gentle but confident. Commander, I think there is something you do not understand about us. We are not here to replace parts in your ship. We are here to solve a problem. And the solution does not have to be the same as what you had before. She pointed at the dead power core. Your people designed this system centuries ago, yes? And you have been building the same design ever since. Making small improvements here and there. Kel nodded slowly. That is correct. Humans do not work that way. Hana's eyes gleamed with something that looked almost like hunger. When we face a problem, we do not look for the obvious answer. We look for the best answer, even if it means throwing away everything we thought we knew and starting fresh. Yuna was already walking around the chamber, examining the walls and support structures. This core chamber is overbuilt. You have structural reinforcements that seem unnecessary. Why? Ven answered hesitantly. The core generates significant heat during operation. The reinforcements prevent damage to the surrounding areas. What if the core did not generate that much heat? Yuna asked. Ven blinked. That is impossible. Energy production always creates heat. That is basic physics. Basic physics allows for many solutions, Do-hyun said calmly. Heat is waste energy. The more efficient the system, the less heat it produces. Your core operates at approximately 60% efficiency. That is why you need the reinforcements. 60% is considered excellent efficiency, Ven said defensively. Do-hyun simply nodded. Yes. For your people, it probably is. Kel felt something cold settle in his stomach. It was not fear exactly. It was something worse. It was the realization that everything he thought he knew might be wrong. Are you saying, Kel spoke slowly, that you can build a better power core than ours? Hana turned to face him. Her expression was kind but also serious. Commander, we are not soldiers. We are not conquerors. We are designers, creators, problem solvers. She paused. The weapons that destroyed the Tor Empire were not built by our military. They were built by people like us. Engineers, scientists, dreamers who looked at impossible problems and found ways to solve them. Minho looked up from his device. Commander, with your permission, I would like to make some modifications to your power core. I believe we can not only fix it, but improve it significantly. How significantly? Kel asked. Minho smiled. It was a gentle smile, without any threat behind it. But somehow, that made it more frightening. If our calculations are correct, we can increase your core efficiency to approximately 92%. Your ship will be faster, your weapons more powerful, and your energy reserves will last 3 times longer than before. Ven made a choking sound. That is impossible. Our best engineers have worked on this design for generations. Your best engineers followed the same path, Hana said softly. They improved what existed. We are going to show you a different path entirely. Kel looked at the 4 humans standing in his engineering bay. They were small. They carried no weapons. They had arrived in a tiny shuttle that could fit inside one of his cargo bays, and he was more afraid of them than he had ever been of any enemy fleet, because he finally understood what Ambassador Oren had tried to warn them about. The Vel had feared human soldiers. They had feared human weapons. But the true power of humanity was not in their armies. It was in their minds. Proceed, Kel said, his voice barely above a whisper. Do what you need to do. Hana smiled warmly. Thank you, Commander. This is going to be fun. Somehow, those words terrified him most of all. The next 12 hours changed everything Commander Kel thought he knew about the universe. It started with Hana asking for a flat surface and something to write with. Ven provided her with a technical display screen, expecting her to request complex data or detailed specifications. Instead, Hana sat down on the floor of the engineering bay and began to draw. Her hand moved quickly across the screen. Lines appeared, curved and connected, forming shapes that Kel did not recognize. She did not look at any references. She did not consult any databases. She simply drew, as if the designs already existed in her mind and she was just letting them out. What is she doing? Ven whispered to Kel. I do not know, Kel admitted. Minho knelt beside Hana, watching her work. Occasionally he would point at something, and they would speak in rapid human language that the translation system could not fully process. Do-hyun stood near the power core, taking measurements with a device from his bag. Yuna had somehow found a maintenance ladder and was climbing up the walls of the chamber, examining the structural supports. An hour passed. Then 2. Kel wanted to interrupt, to ask what was happening, but something stopped him. There was a strange energy in the room. The 4 humans were not just working, they were creating. And disturbing that process felt wrong somehow. Finally, Hana stood up and showed her screen to Minho. He studied it carefully, then nodded with a wide smile. "This could work," he said. Hana turned to face Kel and Ven. "I think we have a solution." She held up the screen. It showed a design that Kel did not understand. Complex geometric shapes, surrounded by lines and numbers. It looked nothing like any Vel technology he had ever seen. "Your power core uses a crystal matrix to contain and direct energy," Hana explained. "The crystals are efficient but fragile. When one fractures, it creates a cascade failure that damages the others. That is what happened to your ship." Ven nodded. "Yes. That is the main weakness of our system. What if you did not need crystals at all?" Ven stared at her. "Then, how would you contain the energy?" Hana smiled and pointed to her design. "Magnetic fields. Layered magnetic fields that rotate in opposite directions. They create a containment bubble that holds the energy without any physical material. That is," Ven struggled to find words. "That is theoretically possible. But the calculations required to maintain stable magnetic fields would be enormous. No computer could process them fast enough. Human computers can," Do-hyun said calmly. He held up a small device no bigger than his hand. "This processor can perform the necessary calculations 100 times per second. I built it 3 years ago for a different project, but it should work here." Kel felt dizzy. "You carry technology like that in your pocket?" Do-hyun looked confused by the question. "Yes, it is useful for many situations." Minho stepped forward with his own screen. "While Hana was designing the new containment system, I was looking at your engine configuration. Commander, your ship uses standard thrust vectoring for movement, correct?" "Yes, all Vel ships do." "What if I told you there was a way to triple your acceleration without increasing your fuel consumption?" Kel's 4 hands tightened into fists. "I would say that is impossible." Minho showed him the screen. It displayed engine designs that looked completely foreign. "Your current engines push exhaust in one direction to create thrust. Very straightforward, but if you modify the exhaust ports to create a spinning vortex pattern, you can generate additional thrust from the rotational energy. We call it cyclonic propulsion. Earth developed it about 20 years ago." 20 years? Ven sounded faint. "You developed engine technology this advanced in 20 years? Actually, the original idea came from a teenager in a science competition," Minho said casually. "A professional team refined it later, but the core concept was invented by a 17-year-old named Jisoo. She is one of our most famous engineers now." Kel sat down heavily on a nearby equipment container. His legs no longer felt stable. Yuna climbed down from her inspection of the upper levels. "I found something interesting too. Your hull armor uses layered metal plates for protection. Standard approach, but you have gaps between the layers where energy can penetrate. Those gaps are necessary," Ven said. "They allow heat to dissipate during combat." "True. But what if the gaps were filled with a reactive gel that absorbs energy, impacts, and converts them into additional heat dissipation?" Yuna pulled a small container from her pocket. Inside was a silvery substance that moved like liquid metal. "This is something I have been working on. It hardens on impact, absorbs the energy, then returns to liquid form. Your armor would become twice as effective with minimal weight increase." Kel stared at the container. "You invented that?" "Well, the base formula came from a cosmetics company actually." Yuna grinned. "They were trying to make better skin cream. I saw potential for military applications." Hana clapped her hands together gently. "Commander, I know this is a lot to process, but we believe we can implement these modifications using the materials available on your ship. We do not need to build anything from scratch. We just need to rearrange what you already have." "Rearrange?" Kel repeated the word like it was in a foreign language. "Yes. Your ship has everything we need. We just need to use it differently." Hana walked over to the dead power core and placed her hand on its surface. "This core has components that can be reconfigured. These walls have metals that can be repurposed. Your engine systems have parts that can be optimized." She turned back to face him. "Humans learned long ago that destruction is easy. Any fool can break something. The real challenge is creation. taking what exists and making it better, finding solutions where others see only problems. Do-hyun began opening panels on the power core, removing components and laying them out on the floor. Minho joined him, examining each piece and sorting them into different piles. Yuna started measuring the walls, marking specific points with a tool that left glowing dots on the metal. The Vel crew watched in stunned silence. None of them moved to help. None of them knew how. "This is how they do it," Ven whispered to Kel. "This is how they built weapons that destroyed the Tor." Kel nodded slowly. He understood now. The stories about human soldiers were true. The stories about human weapons were true. But those stories missed the real truth. Human soldiers did not make human weapons. Human designers did. People like Hana, and Minho, and Do-hyun, and Yuna. People who saw the universe as a collection of problems waiting to be solved. People who could look at destruction and imagine creation instead. The work continued through the night. The humans did not stop to rest. They drank strange brown liquid from containers they brought with them. They ate small bars of compressed food. They talked constantly, sharing ideas, challenging each other, building on each other's suggestions. By morning, the power core chamber looked completely different. The crystal matrix was gone, replaced by a complex arrangement of rotating magnetic generators. The walls had been reinforced with Yuna's reactive gel. New conduits connected the core to the engines, following Minho's improved designs. Hana stood before the main control panel. Her hair was messy, and her eyes were tired, but her smile was bright. "Ready to try it?" she asked. Kel nodded. He did not trust his voice. Hana pressed a button. The power core came alive. But it did not glow like before. Instead, it pulsed with soft blue light that seemed to breathe like a living thing. The entire ship hummed with new energy. Lights throughout the vessel switched from emergency red to normal brightness. Ven checked her displays with trembling hands. "Commander, these readings cannot be correct." "What do they say?" "Power output is up 300%. Engine efficiency has increased by 200%. The core is running at 94% efficiency." Her voice cracked. "They exceeded their own predictions." Minho shrugged modestly. "Do-hyun found some additional optimizations while we were working. Once we got started, new ideas kept coming." Kel stood up. He walked slowly to where Hana stood and looked down at her. She was so small, so ordinary looking. He could crush her with one of his 4 hands, but she had just saved his ship and his crew. And she had done it by imagining something that the entire Vel Collective had never dreamed of. "Thank you," he said. The words felt completely inadequate. Hana reached up and patted his arm gently. "You are welcome, Commander. That is what we do. We help. We create. We solve problems." Her smile faded slightly, becoming more serious. "And we hope that others will remember this. Humans can be your greatest allies or your worst enemies. The choice is not ours to make." Kel understood her meaning perfectly. The Vel Collective had spent years fearing human soldiers. They should have been fearing human kindness even more. Ambassador Oren stood once again in the Great Hall of the Vel Collective. 3 years had passed since his first warning about humanity. 3 years of watching from a distance. 3 years of fear. Now everything had changed. Commander Kel stood beside him. The young commander had requested permission to speak before the council personally. His ship, the Endless Dawn, had returned home 2 weeks ago. News of what happened had spread through the collective like fire through dry grass. The council members stared at Kel with expressions ranging from curiosity to terror. Elder Bronze sat in his usual place, his scarred face unreadable. Sarah, the female council member who had questioned Oren before, leaned forward with intense interest. "Tell them what you told me," Oren said quietly. Kel stepped forward. His 4 hands were steady, but Oren could see the tension in his shoulders. This was not easy for him. The young commander had spent his entire life believing certain truths about the universe. Those truths had been shattered. "Honored council members," Kel began. "My ship experienced a catastrophic power failure near human space. We were stranded, dying. We had no choice but to call for help. Murmurs rippled through the hall. Every person there knew the law. No contact with humans. Ever. The humans responded within hours, Kel continued. They sent a shuttle to assist us. I expected soldiers. Warriors. The terrible fighters we had heard so many stories about. He paused. Instead, they sent 4 people. 4 designers. Designers? Elder Braun spoke the word with confusion. What do you mean? Town. What do you mean? Engineers. Inventors. Creators. Kel's voice grew stronger as he spoke. A woman named Hana, who designs new technology. A man named Minho, who builds engines. Another man named Do-hyun, who creates energy systems. A young woman named Yuna, who invents protective equipment. They sent civilians to rescue a military vessel? Sarah asked. They did not see a military vessel. They saw a problem to be solved. Kel turned to look directly at the council. In 12 hours, those 4 humans completely redesigned our power core. They tripled our engine efficiency. They improved our armor by 200%. They used materials from our own ship to build technology that our best engineers have never imagined. The hall fell silent. Oren watched the faces of the council members. He saw the same realization dawning that he had experienced when Kel first told him this story. I spent 3 years studying human warfare, Oren said, stepping forward to stand beside Kel. I documented their soldiers. I analyzed their weapons. I believed I understood what made them dangerous. He shook his head slowly. I was wrong. Their soldiers are not what we should fear. Their weapons are not what we should fear. What we should fear is their ability to create. Oren raised his hand, and a hologram appeared. It showed images from Kel's ship. The old power core beside the new one. The original engine design beside Minho's improvements. The standard armor beside Yuna's enhanced version. Look at this, Oren said. The Vel Collective has been building ships for 10,000 years. Our technology advances slowly, carefully. Through generations of small improvements, we are proud of our steady progress. He changed the hologram to show the 4 humans working in the engineering bay. These 4 individuals, working together for 12 hours, accomplished more advancement than our entire civilization has achieved in centuries. And they did it casually, happily, as if it was fun. Elder Braun stood up from his seat. His ancient voice echoed through the hall. You are saying these humans are smarter than us? No. Oren shook his head firmly. Intelligence is not the issue. We are intelligent. Our scientists are brilliant. Our engineers are skilled. But we think differently. He pulled up another image. It showed one of Hana's original sketches, the design that had seemed like random lines to Kel. When we face a problem, we look for solutions within our existing knowledge. We improve what exists. We follow paths that have been proven safe. Oren pointed at the sketch. Humans do something different. They imagine what could exist. They dream of possibilities that have never been tried. Then they make those dreams real. Kel spoke up again. When I asked them how they developed such advanced technology, do you know what they told me? They said many of their greatest inventions came from accidents. Mistakes, ideas that seemed foolish at first. They do not follow careful plans. They experiment. They fail. They try again. They embrace chaos in ways we cannot understand. That sounds inefficient, Sarah said. Wasteful. It is, Oren agreed. Incredibly wasteful. For every successful invention, they create hundreds of failures. For every brilliant idea, they generate thousands of terrible ones. By our standards, their approach to technology is madness. He paused, letting the weight of his next words build. But their approach also produced weapons that destroyed the Tor Empire in 4 years. It produced engines that travel faster than anything we have built. It produced power systems that make our technology look primitive. Elder Braun sat down slowly. His face had gone pale. What are you suggesting, Ambassador? We also have IPS, ANG. We don't see you signef to this. Alented with Fader, we have comply won. Orin turned to address the entire council. I am suggesting that we were fools to avoid humanity. We were fools to fear them from a distance. Fear kept us safe, yes. But fear also kept us ignorant. He walked to the center of the hall, where all eyes could see him clearly. The humans who saved Commander Kell's ship did not have to help. They could have let the endless dawn drift until everyone aboard died. Instead, they came immediately. They worked through the night. They shared their knowledge freely. And when they left, they asked for nothing in return. Nothing? Syrah sounded suspicious. What did they want? Kell answered. Hana said they hoped we would remember their kindness. She said humans can be allies or enemies. And the choice was ours to make. The council members looked at each other. Orin could see the conflict in their eyes. Fear of the unknown. Fear of human power. But also something else. Something that looked almost like hope. Here is what I have learned, Orin said. Human soldiers are dangerous. But they only fight when threatened. Human weapons are terrible. But they only use them when necessary. The true power of humanity lies not in their capacity for destruction, but in their capacity for creation. He pulled up one final image. It showed the endless dawn leaving human space. Below it was a message from Captain Tejo of the Earth Defense Fleet. Safe travels, friends. We hope to hear from you again. They called us friends, Orin said softly. We broke their laws by entering their space. We could have been seen as a threat. Instead, they helped us and called us friends. Elder Braun rose again. His voice was heavy with the weight of 10,000 years of history. What is your recommendation, Ambassador? Orin took a deep breath. What he was about to say would change the Vel Collective forever. My recommendation is that we seek formal alliance with humanity. Not because we fear them, though we should. Not because we need their protection, though we might. But because they represent something we have forgotten. He looked around the hall at the ancient leaders of an ancient civilization. We have grown comfortable. Stagnant. We improve our technology slowly because we fear change. We avoid new ideas because they might fail. We have become so focused on preserving what we have that we have forgotten how to dream of what we could become. Orin smiled sadly. The humans have not forgotten. They dream constantly. They imagine impossible things and then make them real. If we ally with them, we might learn to dream again too. Silence filled the hall. The floating lights drifted overhead, casting soft shadows across thousands of thoughtful faces. Finally, Elder Braun spoke. We have never allied with another species as equals. We have always been the conquerors, the rulers, the masters. Perhaps it is time for that to change, Orin said. Perhaps it is time for us to learn from others instead of conquering them. Braun nodded slowly. Prepare a diplomatic mission to Earth. Ambassador Orin, you will lead it. Commander Kell, you will accompany him. You have experience with humans that no one else possesses. Kell bowed his head in acceptance. I am honored, Elder. Orin felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. Not just for survival, but for growth, for change, for a future where the Vel Collective might become something greater than it had ever been. As the council members began discussing the details of the mission, Orin thought about Hana and her team. He thought about how they had looked at a broken ship and seen potential, how they had taken disaster and transformed it into opportunity. That was the true lesson of humanity. Not their weapons, not their soldiers. Their endless, unstoppable creativity. Their refusal to accept that anything was impossible. The Vel Collective had feared Earth's army. Now they understood that the real power had always been in Earth's dreamers. And perhaps, if they were lucky, those dreamers might teach the Vel how to dream once more.